Welcome back. All right, so now we're into the Winnipeg Jets. This is a fascinating team. This is a team that was expected to make some really big moves in the offseason. They did make a couple. They bought out Wheeler, they traded Dubois, but Hellebuck's still here, Scheifele's still here. Who knows? Maybe I put up the season preview and that changes everything, right? Maybe they both get dealt. But it looks like at the very least, Hellebuck's probably going to start the season as a Jet. Whether or not he finishes the season as a Winnipeg Jet will probably be based on their record. If they stay in the hunt, if they stay above the playoff line, you can't really trade your best player, who's your goaltender, in that situation. So they finished 46, 33, and 3 this past season, 14th overall. They were in the playoffs. The NHL posted an article that they then posted to Twitter or X and said after missing the playoffs, the Jets are looking to bounce back. And a lot of people pointed out they made the playoffs. I think it was up for like 5 hours before the NHL took it down. So, yes, they did make the playoffs. But at the same time, I kind of understand why one would look back on last season and think, well, the Jets missed the playoffs, right? The first round against Vegas, they looked good early. It didn't stay that way. And with all of the turmoil that has gone on around this team, it's totally understandable that people might misremember and think they missed. So they finished with exactly 3 goals per game. They'll want that to be a little bit higher, 2.73 goals against per game. Honestly, the numbers aren't awful. Then their special teams, the power play, 19.3%. They'll want to improve that. But their penalty kill was good, 82.4%. So solid penalty kill. The power play numbers, again, they'll want to improve. Whether or not they can do that this year will probably depend on a couple of the guys they got from the LA Kings and the Dubois trade. Plus, anything that might happen if they decide to trade Scheifele. What do they get back? Keep in mind, this is a team that's made it clear they are not looking to rebuild or retool at this stage. So they did make the playoffs in 2023, but they haven't won a round since 2018. This includes back in 2020 when they lost the play-in round. And for Winnipeg, winning in the playoffs has been a challenge. And it does kind of define this era of Winnipeg Jets, which looked so good. I'm thinking back to like 2014 when they had all these young players coming in and it looked like the Winnipeg Jets were going to be a power, and they did become a pretty good team in the regular season. They did take a run to the conference final in 2018, but since then, it just hasn't happened. So they haven't won a Stanley Cup. They haven't been in a Stanley Cup final. They do have a little bit of cap space, $1,779,643. We'll see if that remains the case going into the season. I don't see any reason to get right to the cap. I think teams, get to the cap. I've often thought it's odd where teams we got to spend that money. So the Jets haven't done that yet. Again, it could happen. So their top 5 scorers, Connor, and everybody knows I love Connor's game. 82 games, 31 goals, 49 assists, 80 points. I think he can get into the 90-point range. Josh Morrissey had a fantastic first half of the season, did fade in the second half, ends up playing 78 games, 16 goals, 60 assists, 76 points, and he has declared he is 100% healthy for this training camp. So this is good news for the Jets. Morrissey back to 100%, and if he can play an entire season the way he played the first half of the last season, he should be in the running for the Norris Trophy. Scheifele, 81 games. For a goal scoring, when you look at just the goal scoring with Scheifele, he had a career year with 42 goals, 26 assists, 68 points. So normally he's good for at least a point per game. He wasn't there this past season, but the 42 goals kind of makes up for it. Dubois, before his exit, plays 73 games for the Jets, 27 goals, 36 assists, 63 points. Wheeler, 72 games, 16 goals, 39 assists, 55 points. He moves on to the New York Rangers. His points total probably will get back into the 60s. But at any rate, the Jets, it felt like the divorce between the team and Wheeler probably should have happened last summer. It shouldn't have been this summer, but it's done. So that buyout takes place, and we'll see how the roster shapes up this year and what they do, but you don't have to worry about Wheeler being overplayed anymore. Goaltending, it is all about Connor Hellebuck, right? So 64 games, 37, 25, and 2 record, 920 save percentage. He was fantastic. Riddick was okay. 21 games, 9, 8, and 1 record, 901 save percentage. He moves on in the offseason. Again, he was okay. Yes, his save percentage was below average, but he won 9 of his 21 games, wasn't below 500 overall, so that's kind of what you want with a backup to Connor Hellebuck. So their hits leader was Brendan Dillon with 198. He does hit a lot. Pionk leads in block shots with 129. And again, Pionka player that I do like watching. For posts, it was Kyle Connor. 11 posts for Connor. So if Connor turns half of those into goals, he's up to 36 goals. Then you've got, for the next one, I went with Barlow. Yeah, I went with Barlow from this past draft. I like him. He was a player who could have gone in the top 10. The Winnipeg Jets get him later on in the draft. And I think that's a pretty solid move for the Winnipeg Jets. For the fantasy sleeper, I went with Perfetti. I feel like Perfetti is due, and if he can stay healthy, Perfetti should be an excellent producer for the Winnipeg Jets. So keep an eye on Cole Perfetti. Again, with Dubois and Wheeler out, there's definitely room there for somebody to jump into one of those spots. Hellebuck, I think, is still the MVP. If he's on this team, he is the guy that's going to decide whether or not they're a playoff team. If there's distractions, if he's not really got his head in the game because he would rather move on and his contract is due, and if that becomes a distraction at any point, that could submarine the chances for the Jets to be in the playoffs early. Their schedule is honestly pretty even. There is a 5-game homestand between November 9th and November 18th. So less than a month into the season. Well, a day less than a month into the season. Nice 5-game homestand. So the schedule's not really bad. The schedule's pretty solid for them. We'll see how the Winnipeg Jets do. 3% of the channel thinks that they'll finish first or second in the division. Love the optimism. 27% said third or fourth for the Winnipeg Jets. 58% say fifth or sixth. So most of the channel feeling that the moves that were made in the offseason have not put the Jets into a better position. 12% say seventh or eighth. I again will repeat, I can't see them finishing below both Arizona and Chicago. But I do understand that at this point with the Winnipeg Jets and all the narratives with Dubois being out and Wheeler being bought out and the discussions of how the locker room is and Scheifele wants out and Hellebuck wants out, I get it. I get why people would be voting them to be fifth or sixth. So the exits, I've talked about Dubois, I've talked about Wheeler. These are 2 top 6 forwards. It opens up spots for other guys. Riddick, of course, out as the backup. They've brought Brossoit back. A spoiler alert with this side of the board. Menelainen's out. A decent depth forward, but again, depth forwards tend to be replaceable and move around a lot. Kuhlman out as well, and Gagne. We haven't heard yet whether or not Gagne is gonna play this coming season. Gagne might be one that ends up retiring, but at any rate, he had a decent season for them last year. Their additions, Iafallo, Velarde, Kupari. Those are the 3 to keep an eye on, all 3 coming over in that trade for Dubois. I've been a Velarde fan since he was drafted. This is well known. We'll see how he does, but he had a very good season for the LA Kings last year. I like Iafallo quite a bit. Kupari, I think there's a little bit of offensive upside to there, but if there isn't, or to his game, but if there isn't, he's a decent defensive forward for their bottom 6. Brossoit, Delia also added. So yesterday I talked about the Canucks. I was like, well, Delia's out there as a free agent. No, he's not. He was signed by the Winnipeg Jets, and there you go. That's how many signings there's been. Yep, that one kind of caught me off guard. I was looking through. I was like, oh, yeah, right, Delia's Winnipeg property. So Delia's going to end up down playing for the Moose. Brossoit's here to resume his relationship with Hellebuck. There's been speculation about whether or not bringing Brossoit back. Maybe they're trying to say, hey, look, we're getting the band back together. Maybe you talk Hellebuck into signing, but it definitely sounds like both Hellebuck and Scheifele are probably on their way out. So while we talk about Hellebuck and Scheifele, they're not the only 2. There are other players on this team that could be on their way out soon enough. You've got Dillon and DeMello, which is interesting because, of course, there's Dylan DeMello. But Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, both on expiring contracts, both UFAs next summer. Scheifele's been mentioned as well. And Niederreiter. Niederreiter, a pickup for this team, who was pretty solid after they got him. Nino is a UFA next summer. So this is a team that could go through a lot more changes. This is a team that could be very different once we get into beyond this season. And then it's a question of, so are they building themselves up and getting themselves back into a position of contention? Are they going to be in that mushy middle where maybe they're a wild card team, but they're out in the first round like this past season? Or are they going to be forced into a position where they have to say, we're going to retool? This, of course, is the second season for Rick Bowness. Bowness was not happy with this team at the end of the season. Bowness was kind of ticked off with the way that everything turned out. It will be interesting to see if, with Dubois and Wheeler gone, if maybe that dissipates some of that negativity around the team. because Rick Bowness wasn't really mincing words by the end of the season, and he didn't mince words much during the season either. This is a team that you could tell there was some dysfunction. Bowness was brought in, I think, to identify it and weed it out, and Kevin Cheveldayoff clearly trusted him to do so. So the Winnipeg Jets now are in a position where, yes, they can bounce back, and if they don't, Kevin Cheveldayoff, is he going to be under the gun at some point? Like, I will say for the Winnipeg Jets, they have given just endless patience to Kevin Cheveldayoff on a team that's been good at times but not consistently good. Honestly, they've given him a lot of leash, and at times he has been able to use what he's had to improve the team, and at other times not so much. One key guy that's not on the board here is Nick Ehlers. I think Ehlers has to be healthy this season. Ehlers' game, I love Ehlers' game. I think he's very, very good, and I think the Winnipeg Jets have a good, solid, honestly quite talented squad. It's just a matter of guys staying healthy and chipping in. And if they trade Scheifele, what do you get back? If you trade Hellebuyck, you have to get a goaltender back, so that makes it more complicated. Like, would Hellebuyck go to Anaheim for Gibson? I would think no, but Gibson's the only other goalie I can think of that has wanted to make a change. And would Gibson want to play in Winnipeg? So there's a whole other question there. The Winnipeg Jets may have to kind of go all in this year, because if Hellebuyck says, yeah, I'm going to go, and if they keep him past the deadline and he's going to go as a free agent, they then have this black hole in the net potentially for the season beyond, unless they can find another starter to come in. So this is a very important season for the Winnipeg Jets. I think it's an important season to the fans as well. And I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Is there going to be pressure on Kevin Cheveldayoff if the Jets fail this year? Can the Jets stay above the playoff line, or are they going to regress? I do like what they got for Dubois. I think they did a very good job in getting a return there. Can they do the same with Scheifele? Hellebuyck starts the season with Winnipeg. Does he finish it? There's some unknowns here. Definitely some things that could change before, maybe during training camp. Let me know your thoughts. Does Scheifele start the season with the Jets? Hellebuyck as well? Where do you think they end up? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through and you just happen upon this video. And for Winnipeg fans, the one thing I would ask is, well, first off, of course, this needs to be a regular third jersey, right? But secondly, are you optimistic with the future of this team? Have you kind of checked out because there's so many stops and starts? Do you think that they're building to something, or that they should retool or rebuild to something? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.